quick queries today. Since we just have half an hour bracket, so we want to take as many queries as possible. Firstly, Ajesh hails from Bengaluru and holds 1100 shares of IRB infrastructure at 57.32 a piece. He hasn't mentioned the time horizon. So firstly, I'd like to take the fundamental view on the counter. Prashant, quickly, what's your sense on IRB infrastructure? Is it a good bet for long-term investment purpose?
Yes, as a long-term investment, obviously, yes, a good bet. Not at these valuations. Again, I think slightly stretched valuation at this point of time. Even the Q4 earnings as well as the FY 25 earnings are also not so good. So I would like to have a wait and watch to then buy this at a later stage. Maybe at 40 rupees would be a good way valuation to buy the stock.
Okay, and Gaurav, how do you view IRB infrastructure on the charts? What are the key resistance and support levels that you're seeing there?
On charts too, the stock is not looking pretty much upbeat. It seems that we'll be consolidating for some more time here. A breakout is awaited. I would prefer either buying it on a breakout above 52, 53 odd levels, or we'll wait for some more time and look for a reasonable dip from here, preferably around 45, 44 range.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much for that. And now we have another WhatsApp query. Devaraj has written to us from Mysore. He has 500 shares of KPIT Technology bought at 1,420 rupees a piece and is seeking a short-term outlook on this. Therefore, Gaurav, taking this query to you, KPIT Technologies is currently trading around 1,259. So it's dropped a little bit from the price at which our viewer bought them at. And since October of 2024, it has been a little volatile on the charts and has been trading sideways, if I can call it so. What's your sense on KPIT Tech and how should really one strategize their investment for the short term?
I think the viewer will have to, stretch the time horizon of his investment because the stock, it looks that it will drift further lower towards 1100 odd levels. It tried breaking above 1400 mark, but failed to sustain above the same. And now it is drifting lower. So as of now, it is looking weak. Some more downside is there. If strictly it is a trading position, one should maintain a closing stop at 1100. Otherwise, in the next 2 to 3 quarters, recovery is pretty much likely.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Gaurav. With that, we are joined by our first caller on the show. Ravi is joining us on the phone line from Bengaluru. Hi, Ravi. Good evening.
Very good evening.
Yes.
Very nice to see this program every day. It's very beneficial to retail users like us.
Thank you so much, Ravi.
Congratulations on doing this job.
Thank you so much.
My query is with respect to Tata Motors.
Yeah.
I have 300, around 300 shares at the rate of 389, and
Yeah.
I'm holding it for the last 2 years, maybe, or slightly more also.
Okay.
And I'm a long-term investor.
Yeah.
And presently it is trading at 688.
Yes.
Now, before the demerger date is announced, is it worth adding to more stocks at this present price, or should we wait, or what is that? Can you get it clarified from the experts on this particular aspect?
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Prashant, I direct this question to you. Since Ravi is a long-term investor, he has made significant profits from the counter for the past 2 years. But at this particular juncture, should he be accumulating more? Are you seeing it as a buying opportunity at the current levels? And how do you view Tata Motors from a long-term perspective?
Optimistic. I think the recent hurdles have been discounted in the price. There may be some kind of 1 or 2 quarters kind of pressure in the earnings due to the global slowdown and all in terms of automobile sales. But I think everything is priced down in the stock. So a good level to buy more would be around 650, 660 levels. That would be on a dip on buy on dip strategy. But again, I would like to advise Ravi to hold this stock for long term. I think before demerger, there is a lot of still value unlocking is going to happen in next 6 months to 12 months. So overall, my target would be around more than 900, 950 levels from current levels to 12 months period.
Right. Thank you so much, Prashant, for that. And Gaurav, although the question was for long term, but for somebody who might have invested in this counter, keeping a short term in mind. So if I look at the charts, it's pretty flattish. But still, what do you make of the charts, and what suggestion do you have for those investors there?
The stock is available at good levels, first thing. I completely agree with Prashant on this that downside is pretty much limited. It is only a factor of time when the stock starts moving. It is available at a very attractive rate. If I look at its long-term charts, the monthly ones, so it has retraced 61.8%. That is a good complete retracement as per the Fibonacci theory. So it is available at good rates. One should adapt a little longer view, even if it is a trader, then at least a 2-quarter view from here, or maybe a 3-4 months view from here. Then the a trader should take position in this stock, keeping a stop just nearby, somewhat around 600, and look for targets close to 800, 820 zones.
All right. Okay. And now we have another caller joining us. Naveen is on the phone line from Faridabad. Hi, Naveen. Good evening.
Hey, hi, good evening.
Hello. Please tell us your question. How can we help you?
So I have 150 shares of Motor Corp.
Okay.
I bought it around 4,300. I looking at like both technical and long-term play. Their finance arm is going to list soon, and they have launched new EVs. That is where I think they will gain more space. So, and in the conventional ICE engine, they already are leaders.
Right.
So, and then with the consumption boost coming up with this tax benefit and all, and with the interest rate going down, so I feel this should be a right bet for somewhere around like 1 to 3 years. So I would like to ask whether this is the right stock, or should I make a switch to another stock, or shall I keep some kind of stop loss for the rainy day?
All right. All right. Let's help you out, Naveen. Prashant, our viewer Naveen from Faridabad holds 150 shares of Hero MotoCorp, bought at 4,300. That is 4,300 rupees, and the stock is trading around 4,237. Although it's fallen a little bit and has given Naveen some losses of about 9,000 and plus, he seems to be really satisfied with this investment and looks at an attractive future, especially because of the number of parameters that he mentioned. Do you also think that Hero MotoCorp, that has a strength in its two-wheeler segment and is going to grow in tandem with rural growth that is currently emerging in India, and the kind of expansion that it is also seeing in the EV segment, is going to add to the fuel?
Despite having a long history in India selling two-wheelers, there is some kind of high competition going forward in the two-wheeler segment from the EV segment as well as on the traditional segment from Bajaj and TVS and all. So for me, again, the volume growth is very much muted right now. If 6 to 10% momentum in terms of volume is not still been seen in Hero Honda Motors as a quarter-on-quarter sales. I will be wait and watch mode for at least for 1 or 2 quarters. Let's see how the first quarter of this financial year will give this stock a good boost in terms of volume as well in terms of margin. Margins are very much flat from last 3 to 4 quarters in terms of EBITDA as well as PAT. So for me, it's a wait and watch. Obviously, yes, fundamentally strong company if the investor is looking for 1 to 3 years. So a decent 15-20% ROI can be expected from the stock. But again, it will take its own time to deliver on the long-term basis.
Right. So it would take time to deliver returns if one is going to keep an eye for the long term on Hero MotoCorp. But Gaurav, our viewer also wanted to know your technical view on Hero MotoCorp, and what would your suggested stop loss be?
Firstly, the stock is trading pretty much sideways from past couple of weeks. It is a very narrow range in which a stock is trading. I'd prefer taking a long position in the stock once it surpasses and sustains above 4,500 levels. Since the viewer is already is having a position, I suggest him a stop at 3,800. He should hold on to his position. There are chances that it may scale up to once 4,500 is taken out, 48 to 5,200 zone is pretty much possible in the near term, 1 to 2 months.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Gaurav. Now we are joined by Suresh on the phone line from Hyderabad. Hi, Suresh. Good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Yes, how can I help you today on the show?
Today, I purchased the Bank of India shares, 7,000 shares at 118.
Yeah.
Just I want a short term and long term view on that one.
All right, all right. So quickly, I'll firstly go across to Prashant. Talking about the fundamental aspects, Prashant, recently Finance Minister also said that PSU banks need to use its resources to scale up the operations of the subsidiaries. And, big push for the PSU banks there by the Finance Minister. And in the PSU banking space, how well do you see that Bank of India is positioned as compared to its peers? And for Suresh, for somebody who has invested in this counter, do you advise them to stay put with their investments?
Yes, again, continue to hold this stock. With respect to valuations, again, trading at 0.6 price to book valuation, there is a good, decent upside seen in at least for near term to long term. If you see the news of RBI as well as government is focusing a lot of new corporate announcements to be made to have some kind of value unlocking for the investors. So I think BOI as well as Canara Bank as well as PNB, Bank of Baroda, these all three PSU stocks looks good for me from the current levels. BOI is obviously from the current levels, the target may be around 130, 135 for a shorter period of time.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much for that. And Gaurav, quickly, if you could just tell us, because currently it's trading at 119, which is close to its one-year highs. So what suggestion do you have for somebody who has invested in Bank of India?
I think the viewer should stay on invested in this stock. We are personally bullish on the PSU banking space. BOI is on our radar. We maintain a bullish view on this stock as well. 112 is the trading stop loss on a closing basis that he should take if it is a short-term trading position. Otherwise, if he is looking for investment also, then no worries. This is a good stock to hold. Yes, rightly said, 130 is the immediate resistance level for this stock, and we are expecting the stock to even touch higher levels in a year's time.
Okay, and now we have Isha joining us on the phone line from Silvassa. Sorry, it's a WhatsApp query, and she's asking whether this is the right time to enter Nykaa. Prashant, I'll take this question to you. FSNE Commerce Ventures, that is the stock, name of the stock on the stock exchanges, is currently trading around 208 rupees with its 52-week high being 230. What caught my attention is the PE, which is about 901 odd levels. How do you really justify the valuations of this particular counter, and do you think this is the right time to enter?
Obviously, for a fundamental guy like me, justifying a 900 P is impossible. But if you see the distribution network of Nykaa as well as the products and services, with a small margin of 5 to 6% and a PAT margin of less than single digit 1 to 2%, so very difficult to see the visibility of long-term investment. So for me, it's a very high risk, high return kind of stock. You may have a volatile session every quarter. So if you ask me strictly again, I would like to advise the investor not to invest, avoid this stock for this point of time. But if the viewer is a very high risk investor, obviously this may not be the right price, but again, wait and watch for more downside anywhere between 180 or 160 levels.
All right. Thank you so much for that. Now we are joined by Mr. Murli from Bengaluru. Hi, Mr. Murli. Good evening.
Good evening, ma'am.
Yes. How can I help you?
Disappointed that you are reduced to half an hour now from today.
Yes, Mr. Murli, but I'm hopeful that we'll be able to cater as many queries as possible, and our viewers will not feel disheartened there.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, please go ahead.
I bought 500 shares of Elecon Engineering.
Yeah.
At a rate of 641.46.
Okay, okay.
So the results are 11th July.
Yeah.
And this company is one of the very decent ROEs compared to even Thermax, AEA, BHL and all in the similar field in engineering. And they have doubled their turnover.
Yes.
The last 1.35 times the turnover has gone up.
Yeah.
Whereas the EPS has gone up by 500%.
Yeah.
Last 5 years consistent growth in profit and this thing. And they have a P of around 35 only compared to Thermax and all, which has Thermax, BHL, Triveni Turbine and all. So what shall I do? 11th is the result. Should I wait for adding more after the results, or should I disperse before the result? Technical as well as fundamental view, please.
Okay, okay, understood. So firstly, I'd like to take Gaurav's view on this, since Mr. Murli is looking for like the results that are upcoming. But if I talk about the Q4 results, they were pretty strong and the stock reacted to it. It rallied a bit. And so Gaurav, what do you make of this counter, and what suggestion do you have for Mr. Murli there?
Firstly, Mr. Murli has done, good kind of research on this stock. So even I didn't have to look much about it. Got pretty much information on screen itself. So Mr. Murli, you should hold on to the stock. We are expecting a good quarter this time as well. And rightly mentioned by our anchor that stock has positively reacted to the positive results. We do expect this momentum to continue. Although there is a little hurdle placed somewhere around 700, 720 levels for three times in a row, the stock is struggling to surpass that level. But I think let's hope this time this level is crossed and we would see level close to 800 odd in 3 to 4 months now.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much, Gaurav. And Prashant, like Mr. Murli, is always well read and he has researched about his investment very, religiously. He follows that rule. So, what suggestion do you have for Mr. Murli there?
Very easy to answer. Yes, continue to hold. Basic understanding is already done it. Elecon is India's, no, Asia's largest industrial gear manufacturer with respect to valuations, very decently valued. ROCs, ROIs, every ratio says a fundamental strong company to hold for long term. Obviously, yes, quarter on quarter there will be good volatile sessions. Obviously, I'm expecting a good number. A 5 to 10% momentum can be expected as and when the results comes out. So continue to hold.
Okay, all right. And now we have Amol joining us on the phone line from Noida. Hi, Amol. Good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening, Amol. Please go ahead with your question.
Actually, I'm holding 100 shares of LIC Housing Finance.
Okay.
And I'm buying price is 600 rupees.
Okay.
So I just want to know short term view, like whether can it break this 628 resistance this time, and what will be the short term target?
Okay. And when did you purchase these 100 shares at 600?
Yeah, actually, I purchased in 2 tranches over the period of 1 month. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Gaurav, our viewer Amol from Noida holds 100 shares of LIC Housing Finance at 600 rupees, and his question is whether it will be able to breach the 620 odd mark. And very visibly by the charts, since August of 2024, the stock has been almost on an average plateauing. Therefore, yes, when do you think it will be able to break its high levels of 620 at least in the coming future?
See, I won't be able to comment on the time as to maybe today, tomorrow, or what. But the stock is looking good in charts. It is just consolidating. We should not take it negatively. First thing. Secondly, we as a house are bullish on the housing finance companies, and we do have a report on it with a buy rating. So we maintain that stance, and rightly mentioned 625.30 is a resistance zone. Whenever that is taken out, this stock will rush up towards 650, 680, 700 zones, immediate in the near term after the breakout. So he should not worry. He should just hold on to his position.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Now we are joined by Pradeep on the phone line from Bengaluru. Hi, Pradeep. Good evening.
Good evening, ma'am.
Yes, how can I help you?
Ma'am, I'm having 30 shares of LG Balakrishnan.
Okay, 30 shares?
30 shares bought at 703 rupees.
Okay, okay.
So the stock has made given decent return.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to know whether I should hold on to it or should I book profit?
So, Pradeep, I'm just curious that when you first initially bought these shares, so what kind of a time horizon did you keep in mind?
I had a vision of around 2 to 3 years, and it has been around 2.5 years I bought this.
So it has been around 2.5 years. All right. So, Prashant, since Pradeep has made a decent amount of profits with this sort of investment, and he was planning for like 2 to 3 years time horizon only, and since he has reached those levels, so what suggestion do you have now for him? Should he be booking his profits or should he stay invested?
Continue to add more and hold this stock for at least next 1 year from the current levels. Valuation wise, very comfortable in terms of business model, very strong, which is into the chains and sockets, almost an industry leader in India. Valuation, obviously, yes, currently it's sitting at 12p forward and price to book value less than 2. So for me, it's a fresh buy also. So obviously the client is already holding it. So I continue to advise him to add more, hold it for next 1 year with a target of at least 1550, 1600 for next 12 months.
Okay, all right. And now we have another WhatsApp query. Shiv Kumar is on the phone line from Bengaluru. Hi, Shiv Kumar. Good evening.
Evening, madam.
Good evening. What's your question, Shiv Kumar?
I have 5 shares of Pidilite Industries
Okay.
purchased at the price of 2,379 rupees.
Okay.
I would like to know what's the long-term view on it, and is it beneficial to hold on to it, or should I switch into some other sector or some other shares?
All right. Okay.
But I made a decent return on it.
Yes, you did. But for how long have you been holding these shares for?
For the last 1.5 years.
Okay. Okay. Let's see if you can expand them. Prashant, our viewer Shiv Kumar from Bengaluru holds 5 shares of Pidilite Industries at 2,379 rupees a piece. The stock has climbed to 3,054 and was also flat in trade today, but with a positive bias. But in the past 2 months, it has been stagnating for quite some time. What's your sense on this company, and do you think it has a brighter future?
Obviously, yes, wonderful company in terms of its business model and a leader in the same industry again. So in terms of valuations, little bit expensive at this point of time. Obviously, he has bought it at a very lower price. I will continue to advise him to hold the stock for at least for next 6 months to 12 months from the current levels, with at least target of 4,000 from the current levels.
Okay, and now we have Rajpat Patil on the phone line as well from Pune. Hi Rajpat, good evening.
Yeah, hi, this is Rajkumar Patil, madam.
Rajkumar Patil, I'm so sorry to get your name wrong, sir. Please go ahead.
Yeah, actually, I'm having ITD cementation.
Okay.
At 66.58.
All right.
I purchased on December 2020.
Okay, so it's been quite some time.
Yeah, so it has given me multi-fold returns till
Lovely.
now.
Yeah, definitely.
So I just want to have both fundamental as well as technical view from the expert.
All right, okay. Prashant, our viewer, Rajkumar Patil from Pune holds 1,600 shares of ITD cementation bought at 66.58 or 91 or thereabouts, and he's made a great amount of profit for himself by sitting on it for about 5 years roughly. And the stock has been gaining some traction since May of 2025. Until then, it was really stagnant on the stock exchanges. What's your sense on the company? Do you think it's going to be able to expand these profits for our viewer?
I think yes, continue to hold. It has done really well post the acquisition from the Adani Group. With respect to valuation at the current price with and the earnings, I think it's still very lucrative for me to have a very fresh position at this point of time. At least target of 1,100 from the current levels. We are tracking this company quarter by quarter. The order book has been grown very faster, so I think that has been affecting in the earnings also. So Q1 earnings, Q2 earnings, very much expected to have a great numbers. So I think for me a target of 1,100 can be taken for a very shorter period of time and continue to hold for a long time.
All right, thank you so much, Prashant, for that. Now we are joined by Suresh on the phone line from Bengaluru. Hi, Suresh. Good evening.
Good evening, ma'am.
Yes, how can I help you today on the show?
So I'm holding Anok Engineering.
Yeah.
Around 35 shares at 3,200.
Okay.
I took just before the result, and from that day onwards it was falling, and it was made a low around the 2,400,
yes,
600 and 500.
Yes.
And now I'm seeing some reversal. Is it can I book my losses, or is it right time to take average? Or can I hold it for 1 year? So can I touch that 3,200 level if I hold it for 1 more year?
Absolutely, absolutely. So Prashant, since Mr. Suresh has made some losses there with this investment, since the counter has been, not been performing well, especially after the results. So what suggestion do you have first? Should he stay put, or should he be booking his losses at this particular time?
Hold the stock. I think there is some kind of change in the sector momentum. I think the coming quarters will be a good quarters for him, at least to recover his losses and come back to its cost of buying. So my advice would be to hold on for at least 1 or 2 quarters with a view of getting back the cost of buying, and then we can rethink what to do at that point of time.
Okay, all right. And very quickly, we have Deepak on the phone line from Mumbai. Hi, Deepak. Good evening.
Yeah, hi. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening. Please go ahead.
And thank you for connecting.
Most welcome.
And I have purchased Torrent Pharma share for 3,200 rupees.
Okay.
And around 30 quantities last week.
Okay.
And there was a news of merger.
Yes.
So I was in a hurry to ask that shall I hold tomorrow, or shall I sell it off tomorrow, or wait again?
All right. Okay. Let's find that out. Prashant, our viewer, from Mumbai holds 30 shares of Torrent Pharma, bought at 3,150, and the stock has surged after its announcement of having a controlling stake in JP Chemicals and Pharmaceuticals. Is that good news for you, and do you think Deepak should continue holding?
Yes, I think yes. For good news for Torrent and not good news for JB Pharma. Obviously, with respect to the discounted price of 1600, you may get open offer going forward, but that will take its own time. But once the merger company into Torrent Pharma, I think the reach of Torrent Pharma will grow faster than what the pharma industry is expecting. So for me, again, continue to hold. 3800 can be an expected target for on before March 2026.
Okay, thank you so much, Prashant, for that. Now we are joined by Bhaskar from Hyderabad on the phone line. Hi, Bhaskar. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening.
Yes, please go ahead with the query.
I'm holding Enviro Infra 500 shares.
Yeah.
It price 240.
Yeah.
So I want the technical view.
Okay.
On this for short term.
Absolutely, absolutely. So quickly, Gaurav, coming to you, what are the charts suggesting Enviro Infra?
Just give me a second. This is some stock which is generally not on radar.
You can take your time.
So little bit of homework needs to be done here. Okay, so this stock is trading in a narrow range here. Absolutely no meaningful movement coming in, and I'll suggest it's better to reduce or exit the position. I don't see any meaningful move coming in. It is just tipsy top kind of a move. Someday up, someday down. No meaningful trend is there. It is actually underperforming. So it's better to get rid of it.
Okay. Thank you so much, Gaurav, for that. And I'm afraid that with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Ask Profit. But thank you so much, Prashant and Gaurav, for being there and solving, as always, our viewers' query so patiently. And viewers, this is all the time we had on this edition of Ask Profit. But please stay tuned to NDTV Profit, as there's more lined up ahead for you all.
Imports become the exception rather than the norm, and increasingly we do almost last year, for example, of the contracts that we signed of record 2,09,000 crores, 81% was awarded to the domestic industry. Our intent is to manufacture in India, preferably with design also in India.
I am so elated to be on the same screen as the Defense Secretary, and I get a chance to talk about what he said.
In certain areas, like for example, artillery guns and armored vehicles, or in some categories of missiles like the BrahMos and the Akash, we've come of age.
What Defense Secretary Sir said is 100% true, and today private industry can really increase their involvement in R&D.
I am very proud to say that we make, in our categories that we have been supplying to our defense forces, some of the best platforms in the world.
The markets move fast.
And so should your portfolio. Expert insights, real-time stock picks.
Do I buy Ola?
Should I hold CDSL for the long term? Buy, sell or hold?
The answers you need, straight from the experts.
Callers from India and across the world. Connect live, ask, decide and invest wisely.
Your portfolio, your future. Ask Profit.
Nifty and Sensex snapped the 4-day gaining streak. Broader market indices outperformed benchmark indices. Nifty Financial Services remains the top loser for the day. IDBI Bank shares hit an 11-month high amid heavy volumes in an otherwise weak market on reports that the government is close to the financial bid phase in the bank's privatization journey. India's negotiating team for the trade deal with the US may extend its stay in Washington beyond today as talks continue. Sources say both the sides are keen but not desperate to cut a deal. Elon Musk owns Starlink, poised to receive its final regulatory approval to launch satellite communication services in India with space regulator in space. The Reserve Bank of India's macro stress test projects gross NPAs to rise marginally to 2.5% from 2.3% by March 2027, emphasizing on the resilience of the Indian banking system to macroeconomic shocks. Weight loss Wegovy makers Novo Nordisk speaks exclusively to NDTV Profit and says their pricing strategy is such that there will be a product for every category of consumer. Torrent Pharmaceuticals shares rally as much as 4% after it signs definitive agreements to acquire a controlling stake in JB Chemicals and Pharmaceuticals from global private equity firm KKR at an equity valuation of 25,689 crores. IndusInd Bank's board will announce its shortlist for the new chief executive officer, marking a pivotal moment after the crisis led by derivatives trading fiasco and subsequent leadership turmoil. Good evening, you're watching Profit 360 on NDTV Profit. I'm Sanjana. For the next half an hour, we're going to take you through the latest in markets and national and international news. So let's take a look at how the markets fared today. It appeared that the markets had a case of Monday blues, with both the Nifty and Sensex ending lower, snapping their 4-day gaining streak. Most sectoral indices ended lower, with PSU banks leading the gains, ending over 2.5% higher. And on to an NDTV Profit exclusive. Indian negotiators in Washington, led by Special Secretary Rajesh Agrawal, are extending their stay beyond the initial June 30th deadline as crucial trade talks with the US continue. Both nations are aiming to finalize a mini deal before July 9th, a critical date when 26% tariffs could potentially be reimposed on Indian goods. For more on this, my colleague Rishabh joins us with more details.
Right. What we're picking up is the fact that Indian negotiators, the team that was sent to the US on June 26th and 27th, initially for 2 days of trade talks, is still in the US and might stay beyond today, might stay beyond June 30th, as these talks for sort of a mini trade deal continue before this July 9 deadline, this tariff deadline of the 90-day pause tariff deadline that was imposed by the Trump administration. Now, what we're picking up is that key issues still remain between the two sides. Key issues being, of course, agricultural produce as well as dairy produce. Those are two sectors that the US is very, very keen on entering in India. But India remains very sensitive to that, given the fact that it is a large number of farmers depend purely on agriculture for their livelihood, and the entry or the introduction of American crops into India, especially those that are genetically modified, could prove to be a death blow for the livelihood of a lot of these small and medium farmers. What we're also picking up is the fact that both the sides remain keen but not desperate to cut a deal, because both sides want to put their national interests ahead of everything else. So another very key point, a sticking point of this discussion is, of course, the auto tariffs and the steel and aluminum tariffs. That is something that the US has not budged down on, and that is something that Indian exporters are also getting hit by very badly over the past 3 months or so. So remember, the 26% tariffs tariffs were paused, but these sectoral tariffs were not paused. So that is something that India wants included in the bilateral trade agreement. So the July 9 deadline, something we are all watching now. We're in the last lap, and we'll continue tracking this as well.
Thanks, Rishabh, for that. And as India and US are progressing towards a trade deal ahead of the July 9 deadline, we spoke to Sanjeev Sanyal, member of Economic Advisory Council to the Prime Minister, and began by asking him about the breakthroughs that made these talks possible. He also spoke about the need for redesigning the World Trade Organization. Let's listen into that conversation.
Well, I'm not in a position to comment on the details of the deal. That is really the prerogative of the Commerce Minister. But let me say that whenever the announcement gets done, it is very important to realize the context in which all of these trade deals are being negotiated. So what has happened, as you know, is that the old WTO-based, rule-based order has, by and large, now dissolved. So that's not new news to you. Everybody is aware of that. But basically what you have here is a situation where that generalized rule-based order is now being replaced with a network. It's like a web of bilateral relationships. Even the biggest relationship in the world between the US and China, however it turns out to be, will be based on a bilateral pipeline. So when you are based in this network of bilateral deals, you will still end up with two heavyweights in the system, sort of two centers of gravity. One of them will be China and the other will be the US.
Sure.
Now, obviously, we have not been a part of the RCEP. So it is important to us that we are therefore very well aligned into the alternative sort of system. So as you may have seen that we have signed up to a free trade agreement with countries like the UAE, Australia, UK. We are in advanced discussion with the European Union. And of course, we are just discussing what will happen with the US. So we are becoming a part of that network with these sets of bilateral deals. This doesn't mean that we will not trade with China. We will trade with China too. But this is now going to work through these bilateral network of bilateral relationships.
So you've always argued that the WTO is actually a 20th century institution that's out of touch with the realities of modern trade. So when you actually hear from the EU saying that it's time to redesign the WTO, do you then see this as a genuine momentum for reform or more rhetoric from the same old multilateral playbook?
No. So what they are saying is not different from what eventually a network of bilateral relationships is not efficient. What you would, in an ideal world, have is a set of rules, and everybody listens to that rules and trades based on that. And that worked in the 20th century. Unfortunately, this set of rules and the institutional arrangements for that, and just not the WTO, it's a wider arrangements of all kinds, everything from the Security Council to WHO. We need to have a discussion about it because, first of all, we need to have a discussion about whose rules. Now, many of these rules were set up in the middle of the 20th century in the aftermath of the Second World War, and they were set up in a particular way. India did participate in it, but we were not really rule makers. We were rule takers. So now the world has changed, and I think it's not unfair that our voice is heard in a more sort of prominent way. But I would argue that this is not merely about resurrecting the old with a few people like China and India with a louder voice. There are certain things we need to think about. For example, how do we think about regulating artificial intelligence, which will simply go over everybody's borders and things like that. So we have to think about the new arrangement, but it cannot be simple resurrection of the old one. It will have to take into account the new realities that exist on the planet right now.
Sure. So probably new realities is one thing, but what in your view is the single biggest structural flaw in the current framework of the WTO that makes it unfit for purpose today?
Well, as I said, whose voices were reflected when those WTO arrangements were made. Secondly, there's not only about rule making and whose rules they are. There is also the issue about how you enforce those rules and who listens to them. I mean, we have had many problems and complaints about how China, for example, simply runs roughshod over many of these. They may follow some things, sometimes they may even follow it in terms of the practice of the law, but not necessarily in the spirit of the law. So there has to be some issues there. But by the way, let me not let off the hook the European Union itself with its efforts to impose things like CBAM, which I have stated before, is a unilateral imposition of non-tariff barriers in the name of environmental, social, or governance norms. But then they never discuss what those norms are, but unilaterally apply it. So, that's not going by the spirit of WTO either.
All right. So in that case, if the EU is actually serious about this, and given what you just said, what should it do differently from the Doha round to avoid another stalemate then?
First of all, we need to have a frank and open discussion about what are the issues. As I said, you cannot have a situation where one party either flouts the law, the spirit of the rules, or simply unilaterally imposes non-tariff barriers, as in the case of the CBAM, and so on. So, this is only going to work if two things happen. One is that the rules are set to the realities of today. Two, that at least the major trading entities and countries follow the spirit of whatever those new rules and arrangements are.
All right. And what would you say then should India's stance be on tightening subsidy rules, and how does it then balance the need for, say, domestic industrial policy with global trade commitments?
So industrial policy has now come back in the way things used to work in the late 20th century and into, in fact, the beginning of this century, was that we only thought about short-term efficiency. Whereas there are other issues as well. For example, resilience, something we saw during the COVID period. This is not only about, geostrategic, but there can be all kinds of other disruptions. There can be pandemics, there can be, there can be a tsunami. There can be all kinds of reasons why we may want to have more diversified, more resilient supply chains than short-term optimization, which is one of the things that the old arrangement used to encourage. So now that does require us to think about these in different ways. Similarly, if you're thinking of resilience, for example, it's not just about goods and supply chains of goods. We have to think about, regulating artificial intelligence, for example. Now, whose rules and regulations do we follow? What happens if there is a major breakdown? As you will find that these are likely to go cross-border. About a year ago, a single line of code in some update that the Microsoft was making went wrong, and you saw from everything from ATMs to airports and all kinds of people got disrupted. Now, if that is going to happen with artificial intelligence, which is much more fluid, then imagine what kinds of disruptions will happen. So we need to begin to have certain rules of the game. But those rules of the game have to reflect today's world, not the 20th century reality. Secondly, we need to make sure that everybody follows those rules in the spirit of it.
Talking about the rules of games, I'm going to shift focus a little bit and still talking about India and protecting its interests with regards to what's happening with the US. The US is seeking duty cuts on electric vehicles, wine, farm goods, while India wants relief for textiles, gems, leather, and more. What would you say, which sectors are proving most contentious, and are there any absolute red lines for India in these ongoing negotiations?
As I said, this is currently under negotiation, so I'm not in a position to comment. But yes, I mean, every country has its own red lines, it has its own interests. That's why negotiations happen. So nothing very new about that. Some of these are old issues, like agriculture-related issues. There are some more new issues. But I think both sides are keen on getting a good, equitable deal which works for both parties.
All right. And, given your comments about the world dividing into US and China-oriented supply chains, how would you say this FTA positions India strategically, and what are the risks if negotiations falter or if the US imposes new tariffs?
See, as I said, while negotiations are going on, positions will happen. But let's be very clear that when we have this new system of bilateral relationships, it's important that we negotiate each one of them with our eyes open. Obviously, both sides will have their own interests, and so we will have to negotiate those interests and make trade-offs. But I think it's fair to say that both India and the US understand that these are important relationships that we need to sign up for. So I think both parties understand the importance of this.
And let's turn to India's banking sector, where the Reserve Bank of India has delivered some reassuring news. Recent stress tests show that major commercial banks are resilient and well prepared to face economic shocks. The capital adequacy ratio, a key measure of bank health, is expected to remain robust through 2027 with only a minor dip projected. This signals strong financial stability and confidence in the banking system's ability to weather challenges ahead. Meanwhile, IDBI Bank gained close to 3% after government sources told NDTV Profit that the bank's divestment is on track. We also understand that the government is targeting to complete the sale within the current financial year. Shrimi Chaudhary now joining us with more.
The strategic disinvestment of IDBI Bank has entered into final stage. What we are picking up from our sources that the sales purchase agreement, which is a very crucial legal document for both buyer and seller, has been cleared by interministerial group.